Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly 30-minute webinar. My name is Brian McKay, Systems Engineer here at Variphy, and I'll be your host for today's session, where we are going to be talking about our newest release, version 15.3, coming out next Friday on November 9th. Here to walk us through all the bells and whistles, we have Victor Verba, our Director of Systems Engineering. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. It was a cold Halloween over here.
I was about to say, I heard the trick-or-treating was a little brisk last night.
It was. It was. We got a little bit of snow, a little bit of cold weather.
Uh,
Say we made it about 3 blocks, and the kids were like, "Let's go home."
Yeah, right. When the kids are ready to go home, you know it's too cold. So yeah,
Yep.
I'm a SoCal boy, so winters are my kryptonite. I avoid them as much as possible. Um, all right, well, let's get going. Please note that these webinars are always recorded and posted within 24 hours, so you can review them at any time. Check out verify.com/company/webinars for all our past and upcoming releases. So let's go ahead and start with a quick overview of our company and what we do. Then we'll jump into the live demo where Vic's going to take us through the new features in 15.3. We'll then pause for a brief Q&A during the demo. If you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right corner of the screen. And after the Q&A, we'll reward one lucky attendee with a $50 Amazon gift card. So stick around to see if you've won. Quick overview of Verify. We are the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco and Zoom collaboration, deployable either on-prem or as a hosted cloud solution. We provide industry-leading call reporting and analytics, as well as customizable dashboards and widgets, UCCX reporting, remote phone control, change management, Cisco Cube CDR, and our latest additions, Zoom and WebEx call reporting. If you have any questions on any of our features, please contact us at support@verify.com or reach out to your account manager. And one more thing before we kick this off, for an additional fee, Verify does offer an enhanced consulting services to our customers. Verify's SE team engages you with a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, report building, dashboard configuration, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides you with a dedicated Verify support engineer to do the heavy lifting for you, giving you a stress-free and hands-off experience. For more information, please contact us or your account manager, and we'll be glad to speak more in depth about pricing and terms of service for our enhanced consulting services, or ECS. All right, and with that, we're going to get into the wild. I'm going to hand things over to Victor. Please remember to type any questions into the Q&A panel, and we'll address them at the end of the presentation. All right, let me make you presenter, sir. And I think you got it. Yep.
All right. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Brian. Hello, everybody, and thank you guys for joining us for just a kind of a overview of what's going to be coming out in 15.3. 15.3 is going to be expected to be out next week on the 9th, so we are still targeting that date. So keep your eye out for that guy. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The first one I'm going to talk a little bit about is the real-time hunt group agent activity. This widget here has been out for several versions. If you are using hunt groups and you're not using this widget, I definitely urge you to take advantage of it, review some of our past webinars on what it does and how to use it. We have made some adjustments and some tweaks to this guy. The first one I'm going to talk about here is you'll notice my time registration timestamp for my devices here is now in my time zone. So we've added the ability to adjust the time zone to your local time zone, wherever you may be, directly on the widget. So that is new for 15.3, giving people a little bit better visibility from their own time zone perspective. The other thing that we changed regarding the real-time hunt group activity, you'll notice when I was in there, there's two different ways to be able to view this data. There is the ability to view it from a user perspective. In other words, I have phones assigned to my user, but there's also a way to view it from a phone perspective. In other words, you know, I have a lot of general phones, operator station 1, operator station 2, you know, front desk 1, front desk 2, things like that. And that's much less user-based and more phone-based. With the phone-based view, we did have an issue where it was actually duplicating the phones. So if we take a look at this same widget in a version 15.2, you'll notice that this phone is registered or shown twice because it has two different lines in two different or part of the hunt group. So what we were doing is we were duplicating those. The summary statistics were still accurate, but the detail statistics that we're looking at here, you would see a phone show up twice. So we did go ahead and make some tweaks in here to adjust that. Same widget here, we can see now we have a much more accurate portrayal of what we're seeing, total number of registered devices, and all of the users. And here are all the devices. We're no longer duplicating that line. So a couple new additions if you are using the real-time hunt group activity. The next one I'm going to talk a little bit about here, and the nice thing about 15.3, we've got a little bit for everybody on here, is for our contact center folks. Something that we've had a lot of people ask us for when we look at our period over period metrics, hour over hour, day over day, week over week, date over date, was the ability to add multiple queues. So this particular widget that I'm looking at right here, previously in 15.2 was designed around building statistics for a single queue. In other words, my total summary could only be for one queue. You didn't have the option to add multiples. In 15.3, we did go ahead and add the ability to go ahead and add multiple queues in here. So if I cancel out of here, we can see I've got 271 calls for my one cars queue over the current quarter. If I now go ahead and add another queue in there, you're going to see you're going to have total summary for multiple queues now. So when we're talking about, I have multiple queues, the same folks in them, Spanish, English, things like that. A lot of people needed to see those combined. We didn't previously have the ability to do that, and now we do. We can combine both of those. We did have a lot of customers, and I'll kind of address this now because I know a lot of folks have asked for it. It's something that we're still trying to figure out a best possible way to do it, is to be able to data point multiple CSQs. In other words, right now I have 2 CSQs in here. I want to see these stats for 2 CSQs. In theory, that sounds great, but you could see how convoluted that may get. If I add 4 or 5 different queues in here, I have 4 or 5 different data entry points. You could get a very, very convoluted widget that really doesn't provide the information that you're hoping for. So right now, this widget is going to be based on total summary for multiple CSQs, which again addresses a lot of things people were asking for. As far as being able to add multiple data points, we're not quite there yet. We're not sure how we would accomplish that and still make an effective widget, but we do have the ability to go ahead and combine those now, which we did not previously have in 15.2 or earlier. All right. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and pop into for 15.3 is the DN and DID management. You're going to notice a new little guy over here if you're taking advantage of our DN and DID management. So prior to 15.3, when you were searching your DNs or DIDs, you were limited to 25 on a page. If you wanted to see more, you had to go ahead and export those results, or you could refine your search to be more inclusive to what you were looking for. We did have a lot of people ask to be able to get more on the page. So again, you asked, we heard you. So rather than being able to limit you to just 1 through 25, you can now add an additional results in here all the way up to 500. A lot of people had asked for something like a pagination. The way that these numbers are being queried from the call manager versus the matching of the potential multiple sites and multiple blocks, we didn't feel pagination would be very effective. It would be slow to render each additional page because that query would go back to call manager multiple times. We felt that's not a very efficient way to treat call manager or the Variphy system. So we did go ahead and add a results count up to 500. This will query the 500 block, show me everything that I have available. If you are looking for more than 500, of course, you can always go ahead and export, and it will export everything within your search. All right. Again, something a little bit new for DN and DID management. And like I said, Brian, we have a little bit for everybody in this particular build here.
Right on.
The next thing I'm going to go ahead and flow to is some WebEx calling changes. So one of the things that we've had in WebEx calling, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a very dumb search. Don't do this when you're on your system, but my system is relatively small, is we added the ability to add the call scenario into our system or into the detail row. So if you're familiar with our call manager analytics and our system, we have call scenarios, answered calls, abandoned calls, long duration, medium, short duration, connected, non-connected. Those are all what we call scenarios, and those are built into our system. We have a lot of folks, and especially with call managers, said, okay, I really need to know what scenarios these calls fall under. For example, if I'm reporting summary on answered and connected, well, this call is going to fall under both answered and connected and medium duration. So by adding this scenario in, which is very easy, just from our show hide columns, you'll find it off on the left and down towards the bottom, you'll see call scenarios. That's that guy. It's going to go ahead and tell you each scenario a particular call falls under. So if you are doing summary, you're now going to be able to see each individual call and which call it falls under. It makes it very easy to try to find out, hey, what are my connected calls, or what are my answered calls, or just show me all my short duration calls. You could see that from a scenario, but you also have call scenarios to be able to filter on. That came out in our previous version. The next thing I'm going to talk about, sticking on the WebEx bandwagon here, is going to be the unassociated users. So let's, for example, we are grouping, or we're running a report for our hunt group here. Let's go ahead and show you a quick example here. I'm going to pick on our hunt group that I know has got some activity, and we're going to look at our calls from the previous day. When calls come in through hunt groups, they don't always necessarily belong to a person. There are things which we'll consider transfer legs, where there is no first name and last name, and the call's just coming through the hunt group yet. It hasn't even reached out to a person. In our reporting prior to 15.3, when we export these results, let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and, we'll just go ahead and view these results, export these. Again, come on. And we're going to group them. So we're going to group them by the called user. Again, like I said, the call that comes into a hunt group, there's not always a user associated to it. Much like in the old call manager system, you could have a call that hits the hunt group and then it rolls out to the user. So let's go ahead and group by called username, called party name, and we're going to go ahead and just run our report right now. You know what? Maybe we'll change our sort value here. We'll sort from highest to lowest. And we can just give this guy a quick run. So what the grouping is going to do is it's going to take the calls from all of my hunt group, obviously, and then it's going to group them by the user that's receiving those calls. Now, because we are just doing a very blanket search for a hunt group, it's also going to include hunt group transfer legs and things like that. Yes, there's absolutely ways to filter those out using different call scenarios, different call types, different call users, and things like that. But a lot of times we're just doing a very blanket report. So with that, what it's going to go ahead and do is it's going to create this guy right here. All right. This is all the calls that came in that didn't have a user associated to them. In other words, these are the calls that were ringing my hunt group. And if I click on any of the cradle to grave that we have here, you'll see that we have that hunt group call. There is their call being transferred from this person over to the hunt group. There's no person associated to that. That could be confusing for general managers and general users, because you're going to look at this and be like, well, why do I have 24 calls going to this person? And who is this person? Well, it's not a person, it's a transfer leg, but that takes explanation. That takes, explaining what a call leg is, going through the details sometimes. So in 15.3, we do give you the ability to go ahead and exclude that. That's always been an option we've had with Call Manager, and we have now added that for both WebEx and both for Zoom as well. So if you are seeing those unassociated users, depending on how you're building your report or what you're building your report for, if that's not a valid user for you, which in this case, when we're talking about hunt groups and call queues, it's not a valid user, you could go ahead and toggle that guy off in the grouping section of your report. Once you run that report, it's going to go ahead and omit that result for you. So you're not automatically going to see that unassigned user and have to have a conversation on what it is, why it is, look through the detail to see what those are. Again, great way of really... It is. It's a great way of just kind of cleaning up and prettying up the report and just making it more presentable to general managers, supervisors, and things like that. All right, well, now we'll take a look at our new report here, and you can see we no longer have that unassociated user. We still have our calls, all of our volume is here, but that user is no longer presented on the report because we don't care about his counts. It's just the hunt group receiving a call, so we really don't need to see that in the detail or the grouping. And again, that option was also added for Zoom. So you'll notice in a Zoom report, you'll have that same option. I'm not going to go into Zoom reports. It's in the same exact place, does the same exact thing. Right. The next one that I'm going to talk a little bit about is for WebEx as well, and that is a Boolean statement for is or is not. So a lot of times we would have people coming to us and saying, hey, I need to be able to see all of these particular, all the calls to or from this site, but I want to exclude something. I want to exclude a certain type of call, be it a voicemail call or be it a end user call. So with Variphy Variphy, you now have the ability to, let's go ahead and run it, and let's pick on a site here. Let's go ahead and do our Santa Monica office because I know I've got some call data here. Right now what I'm doing is I'm running a report for an entire site. That's great. Now I'm going to have a site's worth of data, but there are certain things, okay, or I'm not going to have a site's worth of data here. Let's go ahead and expand our search here. Let's do the current week. Yeah, right. And let's see. Why don't I have data for what happened to my Santa Monica office here? Oh, I picked Santa Ana. That's why. Whoops, wrong site.
So many Santas in California.
So many Santas in California. So here what we're looking at, and I'm going to trim this down a little bit. I don't even need to trim it down. These are all the calls to my Santa Monica office. So there may be certain things or certain values, and let's trim this down even more and let's make this event-based. So we're seeing just those calls, but there's going to be certain things that you may not want to see. Let's say, for example, I have a customer that's running a report for their entire location. This is exactly what they're doing. They're saying, hey, we want to be able to see all these calls, but what we really don't want is we don't want to see the hunt group calls in here because we have different reports that account for those. So besides looking at our hunt group or our user type, we don't really want to see these. So how can we exclude them? Prior to 15.3, our user type val was just is. So in other words, the called party user type was whatever it picked. So you didn't have the option to do an is or is not statement. All right. So if you wanted to remove the hunt groups, you had to go through and pick all of the other options in there. And then there were still problems with that because sometimes the user type was blank depending on what you were searching on. Again, intentionally blank, much like we saw with the hunt groups. So it was a little bit cumbersome to just get what you wanted. So now in 15.3, you have the ability to say, hey, show me all my Santa Monica office, but let's exclude those hunt group calls because I already have another report that accounts for those. I want to see what everybody else is doing. You now have the flexibility to go ahead and do that, and you'll see our call volume went down, and we no longer have any hunt group calls in our user type. So huge feature, a lot of different ways to be able to use that, not just for hunt groups, for voicemail calls, for really including or excluding any number of these values. You now have the ability to go ahead and remove just the value that you don't want to see and keep everything else. Okay. Next thing we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about are some high-level features, not necessarily associated to one thing or the other. And that is a new alert that we have here under our license notifications. If you're familiar with 15.2 and you sat in on any of our webinars, we did go ahead and add a threshold alert. In other words, we gave you the ability to set a threshold and get alerted, or overage alert, where you would get an email if you are over your license count. So let's say you are licensed for 100 WebEx users or 100 call manager phones or 100 Zoom users, and you went to 1002. In version 15.2, we gave you the ability, we gave you a buffer. We said, okay, we're going to give you guys 14 days to either get within license or let us know if this is going to be normal and we can increase your license. That prevented the system from being inaccessible to where you couldn't go through and run reports. So that came out in 15.2. Now in 15.3, we've added the ability to go ahead and give you guys an alert prior to even hitting that threshold. We have a lot of customers out there, and I use 100 as a very small example. Hundreds of thousands of phones. They're constantly adding locations, removing locations. So being able to get an alert when I come to 90% of my license is great for them because it's going to allow them to better manage their own system, understand, do we need to clean up some old things or do we need to really expand our verify license? So in version 15.3, you now have the ability to go ahead and set the percent that you want to be alerted. In other words, if I used up 90% of my license, I want an alert. If I used up 99% of my license, I want to get an alert. And then you can pick the email from the email recipients. So great change. A lot of people have asked for that, to be able to just get that know-how ahead of time. I think we addressed a lot of those concerns and issues with 15.2, but now we're allowing you to kind of get ahead of that a little bit. Okay. Some of the other changes in 15.3 is the support for CUCM 15. So that's a huge one for us, huge one for a lot of our customers, just to know that, hey, we are gonna be in compliance when you guys decide to upgrade over to version 15.3, or I'm sorry, 15.0 of Call Manager. Variphy 15.3 does support Call Manager 15.0. Man, that's confusing.
It's like trying to track all the Xbox releases.
Yeah, right. A couple other things that are really a little bit smaller but pertinent. We did upgrade Apache Tomcat to 8.5.95, so we are updated our release of Apache. So anybody concerned about older release, 15.3 will go ahead and get that updated. Also, a cool little feature that I like to work on, or I like to see in there, was if you have a lot of clusters, oftentimes when you were going to the CDR processing tab, it took a little while to load. The reason being is it would load and show you the date range of all of your clusters. If you just had one cluster, you may not notice, because it'll get the date range of start and from date from your cluster pretty quickly. But if you had 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 or sometimes 20 to 100 clusters, this menu could have gotten very cumbersome, because it would try to load the to and from dates of all your CDR data. Or if you had one monster database out there, it took a while to read, it may take a little bit of time to load this screen. So 15.3, we did away with the automatic querying. However, we are still giving you the ability to check your available date ranges. Just by clicking on that little toggle right there, you're going to be able to see the available date ranges of your data. So great option. Again, we saw this a lot more with larger customers, but it's still impactful even if you have a large database. It's nice to be able to just come in here, see the date ranges when you want. These will be the same date ranges that you can really pick out from looking at the data summary on any of the call history reports. All right. And with that, Brian, I think that's about all I've got for 15.3, other than, again, the fact that we expect this guy to be out in next week on November 9th.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks a lot, Vic. Awesome presentation as always. We did have a few questions. First one was about the D&D pagination, which D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, D&D ID pagination, which you did address, and they said, okay, top 500 works, thumbs up on that, so we're already making someone happy with that
Excellent.
one. A couple other questions. Is the sort by hunt pilot status resolved and shows when using phone view in the widget? I don't remember if you addressed that one or not.
I don't know that I have an answer for that. So I did not see anything regarding a resolution for the hunt pilot status. I'm fairly certain I know what you're talking about. I don't think it's resolved in 15.3, but I'm more than happy to find out what we have for a target for that, and get back to you on that.
All right, sounds good. And another question was, how about trimming down the user view on the Hunt Group live view so it only shows one person, even if they have multiple phones? Like, was that one addressed? I thought that was.
Yeah, so we could talk a little bit about that. So on the user view, it will only show one person if they have multiple phones. So that has been addressed. I know that was a problem previously, and let me find my real-time hunt graph. It looks like it's loading right there. So even if you do have multiple phones, it will only show you once, and it will always count you once. So it may be just an older version, or if you are seeing multiple people in here, maybe it's not something we're aware of. But if you do have multiple phones, the user view will only show you once.
Okay. Awesome. I think that is all the questions. I don't see anything else in there. So great job once again. Let me take presenter back here. Thanks all of you for coming today. We know everybody has a busy schedule, so we appreciate you taking time out of yours to come watch these live with us. Check out our next week's session, which is going to be about creating CUCM dashboards and reports geared specifically towards executives. That's going to be hosted by Trey and Mike. So be sure to register for that. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Great. Thanks all.